Tocho sambo pagyu trashi pa tuche tempe chinle yarngoda pelge drolor zambe zeparche pande lame shabla solwade Omo a guru vajradara sumati munisha sane karm Utta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Oma guru vajradara sumati munisha sane karm Utta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Om a guru vajradara sumati munisha sane karm Utta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Pakyuke kudan dagi lu Pakyuke sundan dagi nga Pakyuke tukdan dagi yi Tön yerme çıktı çingi lo Makyuke kudan dagi lu Makyuke sundan dagi nga Makyuke tukdan dagi yi Me çıktı çingi lo Om Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Shakyamuni Swaha Sashipeki Choshiameto Tramare Rabalingashi Nidegempadi Sange Shinto Mikte Ulvarki Drokunam Dashingla Chopar Shoyidam Guru Ratna Mindrala Kamniryatayami Sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi jinso gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonam la chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki Drola pinchira sangye drupar sho sangye chedan tsoge chonamla chancho pardo dani kyapso chi dagi chushe gibe sonam ki drola pinchira sangye drupar sho nel Buddha.
In Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, can I reach the state of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings.
In the Buddha, Dharma and Sangha, I take refuge until enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Namo yal haye ke da luda nu jin ke drubon da mi ke nam da rowa kunge danam chi tsampa tamche ke to dagi chöten to tamche ke to dagi chöten to. Buongiorno.
Good morning.
Esiste un concetto
There's a concept which is the basis for the practice, which is called Shilamdresum. Shi means base, lam, the path, dre, the result, and sum means 3. Therefore, generally, usually in Tibetan, when we put the number at the end, we say that the cycle is complete. Shi lam dre sum. Basis, result, the path and the result. What does this mean? First of all, the base is the state in which we find ourselves now, the resources that we have. Things are as they are now. Even if the path is base, actually the path is of comprehension. We have, first of all, I realize where I find myself, what resources I have, what is my reality, what is there. And then I see, with what I have, with what I am, what can I realize? It's as if I have earth and water. That's the base of what I have. Can I imagine a beautiful statue from that? Is it possible to make a statue from water and earth? So I imagine the statue and that's the result. Once I can imagine it, then I have to actually do it. And then we have the part of the path, the stages, necessary stages. So we see it's no longer the original thing of my actual state, the path and the result. We bring the result first and then we embark on the path. It's clear that if I have as an objective of making a metal statue, but I only have water and earth, I can try as hard as I can, but I'll never have a metal statue. Therefore, it's important. There has to be consistency between the basis and the result and the path. This is fundamental. All our paths, all our spiritual path, which Buddha has transmitted, all are based on these 3 stages. Everything, the basis, the path, and the result. But in the comprehension process, the last 2 are inverted. Result comes before the path. There are so many aspects that we could analyze and spend weeks and weeks studying them. But at the base of all this, what do we have? Body, speech and mind, our being in this present moment. There's a reality with which we interact, usually. We study two realities, relative and absolute realities. In other words, we live in an interdependent reality. It's relative, interdependent, and that's part of the basis. Then we have a psychophysical reality, which is constantly changing. The better we know these psychophysical reality, the better we can understand the interdependence in which we live. And then more we have faith in the result and make an effort, a constant effort in achieving that objective, that result. Therefore, at the basis of this, one of the most interesting things of Tantra is that the Vajrayana practice, often used, called Tantra, it's often seen as, maybe I'm using the wrong term, but just to make you understand, it's mystical, esoteric, it's something that can't be understood. There are so many symbols, and say strange things, strange rites, and something happens. There's this idea. And this actually attracts people sometimes. You do this and that, this strange rituals. But from my point of view, Tantra is one of the most coherent and down-to-earth things I've ever come across, because in the Vajrayana teachings, all the aspects of the basis are taken into account. What we are, for example, today we have a body. Yes? So at the basis of Tantra, we start off knowing our body. So then we go to the mind. We have a mind. And then speech. So we learn how they work and how to use them. Because we're constantly interacting with concepts, images, colors, movement. Our mind functions on the basis of mental images and concepts and archetypes. We have an energetic characteristic. So what happens energetically to the body occurs in the mind, and vice versa. We, being interdependent, we transform ourselves on the basis of familiarization, whatever it is. Our mental images are so important in transforming ourselves, because we transform ourselves much more on the basis of experience rather than understanding. When we imagine, we create experiences and reality, our reality. So apart from these realities, we're composed of body and mind primarily. The body is more simple. The mind, to be able to understand the mind, Buddha divided into 4 parts when he introduced human being. Sensations, discernment, the conceptual part, compositional factors, our character, our personality. And then the gross mind and the flow of thoughts, subtle and gross, the aggregative form of sensation. Therefore, described. So, Buddha said that we were composed of 5 aggregates. So in Tibetan, that's Pumbo. Pumbo means like a little hill, an accumulation of stuff. The body is not one thing, it's an accumulation, a conglomerate of something. There are so many things that make up the body. And also for sensations, the discernment, all the aspects that compose our identity, our personality, the so-called compositional factors, that in technical terminology, it's the other 49 mental factors. If we take sensation and discernment, there are 49 other mental factors. So then there's also the primary mind. It's the flow of mind caused by what we create with our senses, eye sense, hearing, etc. Therefore, the basis, we have body, sensations, discernment, compositional factors, and consciousness. What is the result? Vairochana, that's the Vajras Amitabha. So all the 5 Dhyani Buddhas, Vairochana is the body, speech, Amitabha is discernment, Amoghasiddhi, compositional factors, and Akshobhya is the pure consciousness. And Ratnasambhava, pure sensations. Why are there 5 Dhyana Buddhas? Because at the basis, because there are 5 compositional factors, which we base this on our own reality, not something external. Whatever we find in a Buddha, of the mind of the Buddha, everything we see, the sacred result, always has a corresponding part in the basis where we find ourselves. We have our mind. How many bodies do we have? They say we have 4 bodies. Well, the 4th is not really a body. Let's remember, we talk about body. We have to remember that body, speech, and mind are always together. Where there's body, there's speech, there's mind. There are 4 levels. All right, the 4th is not really a level, but let's call it gross body, speech, and mind on a gross level, and then a subtle level, but all 3, and very subtle body, speech, and mind. And there's the lack. Then there's lack of intrinsic inheritance of body, speech, and mind. When we talk about a Buddha, How many bodies do they have? 4 bodies. We may have a more kind of fancy name for it, but let's go in the same order. We have Trulko, Nirmanakaya, the body of emanation, gross body, Sambhogakaya, with the body of enjoyment, subtle level, and the Dharma mind, which is on a very subtle level. And then we have the 4th aspect, which I mentioned, is the lack of inherent existence of all 3. What happens is that when we see the result, it's as if it's like a result of, it reflects what's in the basis, but at its maximum level. Therefore, why do we talk about the 3 transformations? Because the basis, there's death, bardo, and rebirth. Gross level, subtle level, and very subtle level. If bardo didn't exist, there would only be 2 transformations. But it's because we have a process of death, which is the basis. Because of that, there's the mirror of the result. And the same for bardo and rebirth. They have their corresponding mirrors, reflections, in their purest form. Tantra has this aspect of englobing everything we have and use it as an instrument to reach a state of peace, balance, and harmony. And we use even our mental defilements. At basis, we have attraction, aversion, and indifference, or closed-mindedness. These are the 3 aspects of our emotions on a subtle level. In Tantra, instead of going against these sentiments, we use them to go towards the final state of enlightenment. Attraction in itself, there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is, what do I want? Where do I project my happiness? In Sutra, there's a process of understanding how everything's a big con, on what we project our happiness on that which cannot sustain it. So it doesn't. So it's not that we can live a kind of a repression of our desire. There's an energetic past, but no, but in Tantra we do the opposite. You've got a lot of desire, great, let's use it. Think about sensorial pleasures, sexual pleasures. So we want that desire to increase. And once we have all that desire, we give it a different direction. Towards what? Towards what do I really want? I want nirvana. I want to get out of suffering. I want to help all sentient beings. With this force, I redirect it. And that is transformed. Let's say aversion. And less of repressing our aversion, you've got an aggression, aversion. Yeah, let's go. Stoke it up. If you think of Yamantaka, he's really, really aggressive. We put it in a sacred context, and Yamantaka actually has a very pacific energy. But if we take all that away, if we look at the symbology of Yamantaka, it's really, really frightening. So, for example, there's, in one hand he has an impaled man. What one of the means is, there's the destructive angry energy. Let's take it. And instead of repressing it, let's direct it against not against that which we see the cause of our sufferings, but against the real cause of our suffering, ignorance. And that has a very powerful force. Let's say ignorance, which is that characteristics of not to see, closed-mindedness. It's like I'm in front of you and I don't see you. We take the ignorance, we use that capacity to not see inherent existence. Sorry, we use it to eliminate that which needs to be eliminated in order to be able to see the lack of inherent existence. To transform desire, aversion, and ignorance into the path. That's the result. Which is what Tantra does. So Tantra takes all the aspects of our basis, shows us the mirror of the result, and then teaches us how to get from our current state towards the result, using everything we have, not just conceptual capabilities. There's the energy of aversion, of desire, and sexual energy, food, breath, breathing, colors, sounds, the body, death, birth. Everything is an instrument to propel us along the path. And if you actually look at all the techniques, there's an incredible consistency between each one. So if somebody were to ask me why in the practice there's transforming death, birth and rebirth, apart from what I've just said, we also have to say, because we do die and we get into bardo and we're born. So we need to learn how to use it to our favor. Is that clear? Therefore, I just wanted to give you this brief introduction to remind ourselves it's really consistent and coherent and formulated on the basis of what we have, on the basis of what we have now. So why do we have the bell and the dorje? So dorje is masculine energy, the bell is feminine energy. We have two parts of the brain, the mind, and it's got nothing to do with being male or female ourselves. These two energies should be in harmony and balance between themselves. Method and wisdom. And then there's the mudra of uniting both, of combining masculine and feminine energies, balance between creativity and reason. So we take, but all this stuff I showed you about the internal offerings, why do we have that? Because we are composed of all that stuff. We could look at all this symbology in this temple. What's it talking about? What we are, what we can become with what we are, and the necessary stages that we go through from the basis to get to the result. So when we see a mandala, and there are 3 colors, we see 5 Dhyani Buddhas. At the basis, what is there? 5 aggregates, 5 wisdoms of the basis, 5 characteristics of our gross mind, our various mental defilements. That's what we are today, and that shows us that but we can become different. We can transform. So the image of Buddha shows us various things. It's as if it were, it's like a mirror that shows us our future. If I follow that path, I can become like Buddha. Let's imagine a special AI mirror, smart mirror. You look inside the mirror. Let's imagine you go to a beauty parlor where there are special treatments. I give you a special mirror. I can show you what you'll be like after the treatment, after plastic surgery or whatever. And you look and you say, not bad. But of course, you have to spend a whole lot of money, and you have to subject yourself to all that treatment, or to undertake the treatment. The other day, I was talking, a Lama, talking to him, a friend, and at a certain point, we after talking about important things, he said, I see you're losing hair. You know, you can have a transplant of hair. And I said, no thanks. Where my body takes me is fine, thank you. That for me is not a problem. But what happens? Why do people subject themselves to painful, expensive treatments? Why do they do that? Because they manage to imagine, to visualize the result, and they have an attraction towards that result. Therefore, let's imagine we go into a beauty parlor, and then they show us an AI mirror of us after the treatment. And this is what these Buddhas represent. Doesn't mean that become blue, red, green, or whatever. We're talking about internal qualities to their maximum, to their maximum. And when we do self-healing, what we're doing is to allow ourselves to imagine that we're already these Dhyani Buddhas, that we've become all this, and that becomes the method to gradually become that, because we're made of a process of familiarization, of which the basis, interdependence, and we transform according to our interactions. And the more we do something, the easier it becomes. Therefore, the more I familiarize myself with the state of satisfaction, the more satisfied I become. The more I detach myself from a certain ordinary identity with jealousy, etc., the more that all those mental defilements diminish. The problem is that we identify ourselves with anger, jealousy. I am those things. When we just make the simple gesture of throwing away all those mental defilements, what we're doing, we're saying that I'm not that. That's not part of me. It doesn't belong to me. And therefore I can live without it. Therefore, the practice of self-healing has so many characteristics. We could spend months and months discussing them. But one of the most important things is this aspect of familiarizing ourselves with that we'd like to become. And that's called Limudramke. to bring the result into the path. I saw Lama Gangchen practicing this on a more mundane level, let's say. If there was a situation that didn't work, he used to make out that it was working, things were going well. So you need to live it, experience it as if it's going well, and then it will work out. If you give up immediately, it will never work. But if you obviously, having said all that, there is the path between the basis and the result. But we must always have faith and awareness of the basis, faith in the result and in the path. And then it becomes possible. Another important thing before we go back to going back to what we looked at yesterday, one of my masters said to me, the first thing that we must do, the first thing we need to do before something actually happens is to desire it. When we start to see something generate awareness, we're creating the imprint, the seeds, so that thing can actually happen. It's the first step in making that happen. Yesterday, I was explaining self-healing on a very advanced level, not with the expectation that we all start practicing at that level, but the purpose was to plant the seed and the awareness so that slowly you will adopt these advanced methods as well. Yesterday we saw the part of the three transformations. Death into the clear light of death, into Dharmakaya. So the body, speech and mind at a very pure, very subtle level. And then there are the two others that are a lot briefer to explain. At the basis we have bardo and rebirth. What happens is that when you get into a very subtle state, after a while, the mind remanifests as in a gross level. So the seed becomes a tree, and it follows a cycle. Because in the seed, there's all the information for the tree to grow. Similarly, when we die, the last process of death, is called clear light. And I said I wouldn't go into details, but let me do this. There's something that's often misunderstood. It's said the meditation in the clear light, it is to go back to our true nature. The clear light is our pure nature, the essence. We need to see it as our ultimate nature. No, that's not true. The clear light, it's not our pure nature. Rather, it simply is body, speech, and mind on a very subtle level. And most times, one dies, but the clear light is full of ignorance, all the terrible imprints from our mental defilements. It's full of rubbish. So clear light, it's not a clear state in itself of ignorance, of karma, etc. No. Let me make an example, just to help us to understand. If I develop a sickness, I don't look after myself and I develop a serious illness, after I have a son, a child, genetically, can I transfer this sickness to my child? What I develop in my life? So it transforms myself genetically. So therefore I transmit what I've created, transformed. So it's not like our genes are clean and pure. What I live, how I live in my life leaves an imprint on my genes. The analogy would be so it's almost like saying that analogy would be the clear light of body, speech, and mind is like our DNA. So according to the interaction in another body will develop in a certain way, manifest in a certain way. So for the being, so the sphere of reality, so there's nothing there for the being to experience, for the being itself, the sphere of comprehension. There's nothing, all that is perceived is the clear light, a luminous void. It's as if, using the same analogy, it's as if the being entered into the deepest level of DNA. So there, intervening on that level, if you could intervene and mess around with your DNA, you could improve it. So otherwise, it'll just develop according to the imprints, the clear light in itself. Everybody enters clear light. Nothing particularly special in that. But what is special is the opportunity to bring a state of love and compassion, bodhicitta, together with a correct view of reality, together with bliss, to bring it to a very, very subtle level in the clear light. It's like the analogy, to use that analogy, modifying ourselves at the level of DNA, so that when we are reborn in a new body, what we have altered, improved, manifests. So our pure nature is... So all that our pure nature means is that we, at no level at all do we exist in an autonomous, subjective, fixed way. Because sometimes we have this romantic idea that I have to connect with the clear light and I become this special being. Okay, let's say a bit, yes. Because in part, and yes, because to do that, you have to realize that you're lacking inherent existence. But it's not like you get to this point and you become instantly pure. Anyway, I don't see it that way. Is that clear? Therefore, the clear light. So clear light is the biggest opportunity we have in life to reach enlightenment.
Sì, assolutamente sì. Può essere anche parziale.
Can be partial. What happens is the state of consciousness that we generate in the process of death influences the subtle state and then the very subtle state, which creates a different change, a transformation at the very subtle level, not necessarily a total transformation. For example, let's just to conclude this. Everything, this is quite complex, but what is the first level, which is already very good? How shall I say? let's say, that's the insurance for death, to die with a positive mind. So taking refuge. As I'm dying, I connect with my guru, with a relationship of love, gratitude. What do I feel? Faith, love, and gratitude. So, and that filters down to a subtle and very subtle level. The first thing is to familiarize ourselves with that which is virtuous and positive in our life, in order to direction our life accordingly, ourselves accordingly at the moment of death. Therefore, let's go back. The clear light is the best opportunity we have. Just as a parenthesis, said that the bodhisattva, beings which have great compassion, who are not yet Buddhas, who are reborn, let's say in different states. Let's see the realm of the devas, where there's not a gross body. They actually look at us with a certain envy. There's a great opportunity to liberate yourself, because through the process of dissolution of the elements, etc., one can enter into contact, one can direct one's mind through the clear light. But if you don't have a gross body, you can't. They look at us because we have that opportunity, which doesn't exist in the Deva realm. In death is seen. It's the biggest opportunity that we have in our whole life for spiritual growth, obviously. Once with the right preparation. But that moment in itself of clear light is a very good opportunity. It's the best opportunity we have. After that, we re-manifest ourselves on a more gross level. So then we find ourselves in Bardo, which is a subtle state where the being experiences a more mental state, it's described at, because reality that one lives, experiences, it's the fruit of karmic forces, but also of the mind. It's similar to a dream. Because when we dream, we live what we dream. There's pleasure, there's also suffering. When we have a nightmare, when we're in it, do we think it's true or false? The suffering is absolutely real. That person who's doing this to me, is that person there or not? Of course they're there. It's a projection of my mind. Because if I dream that somebody's dying and it creates suffering, when I wake up, does it mean that person's died? No. Actually, rather, it can be a wish of long life for the person that we imagine dead. So Bardo is very similar to a dream. The characteristics are of dreams and Bardo. You think of a place and you're there instantly. The Bardo being can go to one place to another with the speed of thought. So the reality is totally created by the mind. What's one of the main problems in Bardo? We usually have a mind of which we don't have much control. So if I get into a kind of dream, let's say negative, and we get into that drama. So really, it would just take my mind to stop it. It's not that easy. It reminds me of an experience I had as a child. which actually helped me to understand. I was at home of my father, and my bedroom had a high bed, and then you came out of the bedroom, and immediately there was a staircase. I dreamt that I got out of bed and I went down, and instead of taking the staircase, but I jumped. It was a few meters, but it seemed to me like a fall that lasted ages. And while I was falling, I used to wake up. This was a recurrent dream. I used to say to myself, it's a dream. What should we do? So I went back to sleep, and I dreamt the same dream. And I did it consciously. So I did it 3 or 4 times, and I woke myself up before I fell. But what happens is that when we have a dream and we're aware that it's a dream, we don't live it with fear. We can direct and create realities, very nice one, whatever we want. And this is what. So that's what's meant by being aware that you're in Bardo when you're in Bardo. It's nothing that you can click your fingers and it's resolved. It's a process. There are techniques to be aware in your dream in order to have lucid dreams. In many traditions, Western and Eastern traditions. For example, there's one technique for lucid dreams. So somebody explained to me. I've never tried it, but I believe it works. You have to go to bed at a certain time, not too tired, not without strong emotions to eat after having eaten in a certain way during the day. So every day, every time you pass under a door, you say, "I'm awake or asleep." Okay, I'm awake. Am I dreaming or am I awake? And you do it like 100 times a day. Until one day, until also when you're sleeping, you ask yourself that question, I'm awake or am I asleep? Am I dreaming? So there are many ways of doing this. What happens? People who do have lucid dreams, and I know somebody who does that, once they do it, when they're in the dream, they say, well, now what do I do? I know it's a dream. And now what do I do? I know somebody who, his master told him, now you go and look for a spiritual master. So in his dreams, he found this master. And then one day, he saw a picture of Lama Gangchen, the image that he'd seen in his lucid dreams. Anyway, what happens is that one of the techniques which are necessary to transform Bardo effectively, we need to be able to do that in our sleep. Therefore, in order to do this, so to have an aware, lucid Bardo, one of the techniques of training is to learn how to have lucid dreams and learning how to direct our mind. We simulate this during meditation. So I'm in the clear light. At a certain moment, we generate the intention, pampa. It's like directing our mind. Our intention, if I remain in this state of clear light, as long as it's pleasant, I can't interact with other beings. The only being only Buddhas can perceive another being in the clear light. Otherwise, it's only ourselves who perceive. We don't need to interact with Buddhas. They've already got there. We need to interact with sentient beings. If I want to develop myself in a more gross level in order to be able to help sentient beings by interacting with all the means possible I have at my disposal. We generate the intention, and from this intention, we remain on a more subtle state, because you can't go from a very subtle state to a gross state. You always have to go through a subtle state. We imagine that the universe reappears and our perception of it. But the senses are not like those physical senses, but more like a dream. Things can arise in an instant. The perception that we generate, say, the image of being in a very beautiful, pure place with mountains, forests, rivers, lakes, animals, and all the sounds reflect Dharma. If we look at the mandalas, you can see in the mandalas, most of them, around the square, the internal square, there's a green thing, which represents this gardens, forest, beautiful place, full of nature, where everything resounds with the sounds of Dharma. And in an instant, this beautiful environment arises, within which we... Okay, I'm going to give you the longer version of the visualization. We arise as a little like a ray of light, like our forearm. So we arise as a ray of light. Could be various colors. Usually we say it's blue or white, like the size of our forearm. Depends on what we're going to do. Or white, anyway, or both. That vibrates with the sound of hum. The sound, the vibration, which represents us. So our subtle body, speech and mind, made of prana. So we arise initially with this vibrating hum ray of light. And from us, which vibrates with the sound of hum, rays of light emanate, which goes into all directions, transforming itself according to each sentient being's needs. We bring peace, well-being, joy, help them to get over their suffering, and the rays of light are reabsorbed into ourselves. Then we do this again, or simultaneously, however you prefer. And then these rays go to the holy beings, making offers. This is called to realize the two objectives of to help sentient beings and to make offerings to holy beings, which is the same act of offering. When the offer is made to when it's made to a being has no need, it's called an offer. But when we do it towards a being that needs help, that's called an act of generosity. So the Buddhas regenerate their state of bliss and emptiness, and the rays reabsorb into us, which re-emanate towards sentient beings and to bring them whatever they need to get over their suffering. Then the rays come back into us, So we get this karmic force, positive karmic force. When the rays come back to us, at that point we generate the intention. It's not enough. It's not enough to help on a subtle level. I have to be able to do it on a grosser level so I can be really of benefit. So I take a gross body. At this point, the visualization, which is the most detailed one, we look down, we see a lotus flower on which there's sun cushion and a moon cushion, one on top of the other. So one on top of the other, it becomes a bit pink. So the white one represents the mother's womb. So, and the sun cushion represents the male energy, the sperm. So we look down from above, we see the two together with a great attraction. So it's in the moment in which, in Bardo, in which the Bardo being sees the energy, perceives the energy of the sperm and egg of their parents. We sometimes ask if so what happens when you have test tube babies? The attraction. So it's not actually the energy and the time of conception, it's not actually towards the person, but towards the egg and the sperm. So the basis and the result. So we look down, we see this lotus flower. So we see this pink-colored cushion. We feel this enormous attraction, and we direct ourselves towards that. When we enter in contact, we experience a small death. Another, we have the dissolution of the elements, black vision, clear light, very quickly, and then we have the process of rebirth. So in the lotus flower, we have what's called, in Tibetan, I don't know how to translate it, the 5 processes. Let's say that the 5 processes that happen. The first one, which is emptiness, lotus flower, seed syllable, symbol, and the complete body. It's like in self-healing. From the sphere of emptiness arises the lotus, emptiness, symbol, and complete body. So rebirth is made up of these 5 passages. There are other systems, but the most important one is made like this. Emptiness is where we connect with the real nature of reality and phenomena. It's the basis in which the lotus arises, which is, don't forget, everything is of the nature of emptiness. We have different appearances. We appear as a ray of light, but they're all lacking intrinsic existence. So we have that constantly in mind. We have the lotus flower. We enter into the lotus. We have a kind of shock. Everything becomes black. Clear light. And from that, we re-arise. The universe arises completely. And we arise. And we we arise in the form of the seed syllable, a point of light which vibrates, vibrates with the sound of hum. We can also rise according to the practice to one of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas or Vajrasattva or Vajradhara. Because the practice of self-healing is very, how can I say, it incorporates many systems. Let's say the practice of Guhya Samaja. There aren't 5 Buddhas, there are 32 Buddhas. In reality, the state of one can regenerate in the aspect of any of the 32 Buddhas. Normally it's Akshobhya, but it could be in another sadhana, it could be Manjushri. It could be any one of the 32 Buddhas. In this case, we're going to generate ourselves as, in self-healing, he describes Buddha Vajrasattva. It's like Vajradhara, but white. We're a seed syllable hum, and what happens is we arise as a point of light, the seed syllable, which point of light which vibrates with the sound of hum. What is that? It's the body, speech, and mind at a very subtle level. From that, we have the two objectives, one to the sacred beings, to all the Buddhas, and the other one to the sentient beings, which create. And then we arise as a symbol, like a white Vajra, like a beam of light, sometimes it's called, which actually is a white Vajra, or the lights reabsorb after our office, and from the symbol we arise as a Buddha. That's the process of rebirth from the very subtle body, speech, and mind to subtle into the gross level, and in which we develop at the end our whole body. We visualize ourselves in this complex body, which is usually visualized as male or female. Depends. Doesn't determine anything really. Very often, a man might prefer to visualize himself as Tara, and a woman conversely in a male form. But you can visualize yourself as one of the great mothers. We generate ourselves as Vajrasattva, and the most important thing is we imagine that we have a body of light, a gross level, but it's luminous, transparent. We concentrate on our subtle body. We have a central channel, 2 side channels, which are weaker, but they're perfectly aligned. We have 5 chakras: crown, throat, heart, navel, and secret, from which radiate the channels, and they're all which are perfectly balanced. So this is the moment in which we generate ourselves as a divinity. So this is rebirth, Nirmanakaya. And to complete this, we visualize a crown, Om at the crown, a red A at the throat, and a blue hum at the heart. Which signifies that our body, speech, and mind are inseparable from that of the Buddhas. And so up to now we've done the 3 transformations. In self-healing happens between Om Sabhava Shuddha Sabha Hum and Pamla Pema Django. It can be done very detailedly, in a detailed way, or very brief way. I connect quickly with the fact that reality appears intrinsic, but as it's interdependent, it isn't. I imagine that everything dissolves into light, and quickly I get to clear light, and everything switches off. I'm there in clear light with the 4 characteristics: appearance, an infinite void, mode of apprehensions without intrinsic existence, the observer, which is bliss, and that I am the union of bliss and emptiness in this state. And then I arise as a beam of light as the universe arises. So without, we can do it without getting into all the details, like looking from above in Bardo towards the lotus where we're conceived. So until we create a full body, an enlightened body. Why do we come back in a gross body? Because our objective is to help sentient beings. So we need to interact on a level that they can perceive us. In this case, as we're human beings. So the form in which we need to interact with them is as a human being. There are so many accounts of experiences which is described that it is possible to embark on the death process until you arrive just before the clear light, and then you can go back. So what we do is to simulate that process. For reasons that I've already explained. So what happens in the practice? We can do it in a quick way, infinite void of light. We perceive then from which we perceive the outside world, and I arise in a complete state, gross level. So the state of generation is a preparation, and the completion is where we actually do the real practice. One of the characteristics which is very important in generation is to develop very good concentration. So the moment in which we generate ourselves as a divinity, there's the practice of getting into visualize every minute detail of ourselves. So if we take the sadhanas, there are minute descriptions: the hair, the jewels, the hands, the clothes, everything. Because this ability to remain with concentration helps us to train, to direct our mind, and to develop our mind and concentration. At this moment in self-healing, Lama Gangchen Rinpoche said, the next part, which is called the body mandala, which I'll explain in 3 words, where I will be able to go into it in detail in the future. There's a big difference between visualization, the Buddha inside of us, and the body mandala. where we visualize. The fact that we visualize the Buddhas inside of us doesn't mean that we're practicing visualizing the body mandala. In order to be that, we need the basis, which is a part of our own being. And the result is a Buddha. What happens in the practice of self-healing? When we generate within us a lotus flower, which is the central channel, and the round part at each chakra is where the channels radiate from the center of the lotus. There are practices you visualize not necessarily the lotus, but also directly the channels. Or you visualize a lotus where each petal is one of the channels. And then we go to the seed syllables. What's that? It's something which we have already. So we generate Om at the crown, our aggregate of form at the basis. In other words, our body, which arises as Om. Throat, there's a red A, the aggregate of discernment of the basis, what there is now. At the heart, there's the home, the aggregate of consciousness, and navel, tram, sensations, and Ri, at the secret chakra, a composition of factors in our actual state. When we transfer, so what actually is transformed that makes us into a Buddha are aggregates. When we do the practices of the 5 element mothers and the Dhyani Buddhas, it's the transformation of both our elements. So it's more of a question of visualizing the Buddha, but it's a part of me which actually develops and becomes closer to that of a Buddha in nature. That's the mandala of body mandala of Huka, Vajrayogini. What's the difference? The part of the body. So what arises at the basis are subtle channels, which arise in the form of Goya Samaja, for example. We have 5 aggregates, 5 elements, and other parts of our body, and subtle and a bit more gross, which are regenerated in the form of the divinity. In Goya Samaja, we focus on 25 gross aspects of the divinity. In self-healing, the body mandala, we focus on what's the basis of our being, what's already within us. We observe our 5 seed syllables, in which we recognize the aggregate of form, sensation, discernment, consciousness, form, discernment, consciousness, sensation, and compositional factors. The seed syllable. It's not a seed syllable that comes from nowhere, it's already part of us. It's part of our basis. Then there's the work, those aggregates, to transform them. What happens is from the seed syllable, Om, Ah, Hum, Tram, Ri, in the most simple form, Om, Ah, Hum, Tram, Ri. If we did it in a more detailed form, you can do each one several times and do this mudra to emanate and reabsorb, because if we visualize that from each seed syllable, rays radiate towards the Buddhas and come back into us. And through the power of that action, the seed syllable transforms into the syllable, which represents the potential that develops. The symbol represents the same energy, same characteristics. So it's like a seed which is beginning to sprout. Therefore, we have the aggregate of form, which develops. So the arm transforms into the wheel. So lights of offers and help radiate from the crown and come back. And then the wheel transforms into Vairocana. This shows us that the path is a question of accumulating merits. We're simulating the development of that quality. We have the 5 seed syllables, which transform into 5 syllables, which in turn transform into Buddhas. The 5 Buddhas are our own qualities developed to their maximum potential. We have the aggregate of form in a pure form, discernment pure form, consciousness in pure form, sensations, and compositional factors. When we finish generating all these points, we visualize each one of the Buddhas in minimum detail. Even we visualize in minute detail, even the black and white of the eyes. Why do we do this? To train ourselves in concentration and also maintain the mode of apprehension of the lack of intrinsic existence. This way of meditation in which there's a part which of mental activity, observing everything, and at the same time there's a part of the brain remains single-pointedly on the lack of inherent existence. In Tantra, that's called it's patini. So here we practice shamatha and vipassana within Tantra. Shamatha is the state of concentration in single-pointedness. Vipassana is also single-pointed concentration, but a part of which is observes as well. So first of all, we develop shamatha and then vipassana, and then we adopt both of them together. How do we do this? While we keep single-pointed meditation on emptiness, we visualize all the details. The first level of realization of the generation stage, and I don't want to put anybody off when I say this, is when we do the visualization of ourselves as a deity. We've done a body mandala in minute detail, and then we remain in that state of meditation where the mind, we visualize all details while keeping focused on the lack of inherent existence, while maintaining neither a torpor or agitation, where the mind is alert but not agitated. I didn't want to put you off to discourage you, but it's something we can imagine, right? It's not that far off. So, as I said, I'm also describing things at a more advanced level to you. So we start with being able to do it for half a second, then there's another half a second until it becomes continuous. After this, in self-healing, in a few words, we can then, just to cut it short, we conclude the body mandala. Is that clear? Many practices finish there, and there's a final reabsorption. Everything dissolves in light. So we visualize death another time, and then we're reborn. We're here in this body, in this life, but transformed. That's a normal sadhana. The most sadhanas practice Yamantagui, Samaja Vajragini, Tara, Chitamani. We have outer generation, which we've seen together, with or without the body mandala. Then there's practice, which is more advanced, the self-initiation, which is a practice of self-generation with self-empowerment, which self-empowerment, self-healing. There are 4 empowerments. Vasa, the vase, the 5 dhyana Buddhas, and then the Maestro, Vajra Master. Then we have that of wisdom, Mahasukha, and then Bishwa Shanti Hom. Without getting into too much detail, just to give us a sense of what we're going to do. In the vase initiation, the symbology that we use is like a vase with nectar. We can find this in many religions, this symbology. We focus on our identity, on each of the Dhyani Buddhas. We managed to do this in an excellent way. You can't get rid of your defects because I am a Mogasiddhi. But to generate the identity of I'm a Mogasiddhi, I detach myself, the mental defilements connected with that chakra, and then I go back to generate the identity. I am Buddha Mogasiddhi. Clear compositional factors. Then I'm Ratna Sambhava, Akshobhya, Amitabha, Vairochana. So what does that mean? I have the power of realization, to rejoice. I am generosity. I'm concentration, stability, love and compassion. I'm concentration. I'm wisdom. We are all that the Dhyani Buddhas represent. And we identify ourselves in this. The moment in which I am all the 5 Dhyani Buddhas and the aggregates are pure, and then I become Buddha Vajradhara. So it's a union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So we have, let's imagine we have Bell and Vajra in the mudra of an embrace. Vajradhara represents the union of the 5 yen together with his consort. Therefore, we're in the aspect of Buddha Vajra. The Vajra is method, and the bell, wisdom, the correct view of reality, and the 2 together is the union of bliss and emptiness. As I'm 5 Dhyani Buddhas, I'm a Buddha, a complete Buddha, a union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So we generate identity. We are. All my qualities have been improved to their maximum potential. This state of bliss, of bliss and wisdom together. So it goes from a gross to a subtle to a very subtle level. We have the 2 Manipanhomes and Mahasukha, which brings us to a subtle level, first of all, the dissolution of the white bodhicitta, and then the red one, then the Mahasukha. So we have the white red and black vision. And Vishwashanti Hum is like the clear light. We bring that identity, I am Vajradhara, with all that it represents, from a gross, subtle, until I get to a very subtle level, to the clear light, the initiation, the word empowerment. It's because it's beyond words. It's the moment in which one generates an identity as a Buddha, because my very subtle mind and my very subtle, pure subtle body, and the two unite. So the union of the clear light and the illusory body. I am. I'm the very subtle body with a mind, very subtle body and mind in a pure state. And this is Vishwashanti. You remain in that state for a while, then. But in order to help sentient beings, I need to take a gross body. So with the clear light, I've lost all contact. The universe rearises. I imagine I have a body with my chakras perfectly balanced. I bel and bel doja. I take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Just to recap, we take off from where we are. We state a generative awareness. We concentrate on motivation, bodhicitta and refuge. We connect with the sacred. We accumulate merits. Having Guru Buddha in front of us, we ask for his blessings. We receive the blessings which create the conditions in which we can transform to asking for blessings. In order to embark on the path, we need to rely correctly on our Guru. I open myself to Guru Buddha so that he can guide me. And then we purify the elements. Oma Guru Buddha Siddhihum. The difference is when I do Oma. Okay, the first one, Oma Guru Vajradhara Samati Muni, etc., is for the blessing of the lineage first, and then there's Guru Yoga. Therefore, when we Locha Sangpo, the mantra of the Guru, we receive the blessings of body, speech, and mind of the lineage. Oma Guru Buddha Siddhihum, blessing from the blessings of each of our chakras. Each one of these passages can become very long. We can do it in a very detailed, long way. But just to recap, preliminary practices: breathe, presence, love towards ourselves and to others, connection with the sacred, invite the Buddhas and receive the blessings of each one, transforming the three transformations, the transforming of the seed syllables, and then we focus on emptiness with Sabhava Shuddham, and then the death into Dharmakaya, and then in Bharata we rise as Sambhogakaya, and then in rebirth in Nirmanakaya. Body mandala, 5 chakras, seed syllables, symbols, and the Buddha. Bring that identity, each of the Dhyana Buddhas, we adopt it as our whole identity. And then I identify with identity of Vajradhara, which is the Vase initiation. I am the union of the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. So then we bring it from a gross to a subtle, very subtle level, Mon Mani Padme Hum. And then the initiation of wisdom, empowerment of wisdom, we bring it to this from a subtle to a very subtle, on Mahasukha. And then empowerment, word empowerment, Om Vishwashanti, I am the Buddha at a very subtle level. And then from this level, we manifest again on a gross level to dedicate ourselves to the well-being of all sentient beings. We end up where we started off. And that, very briefly, is the practice of self-healing. Could we have an oversight of that? The important thing is to see self-healing as a kind of journey that we undertake, a process in which we allow ourselves to get rid of our normal, ordinary identity, to familiarize ourselves with ourselves in a pure state, in order to be able to come back to our life in a pure state, a better state, to help people. And that is self-healing, in very few words. As I said before, every passage, you can do it on very different levels. You don't have to do it in a detailed way, not as I described now. But there are actually more profound levels, so you can do it very superficially or quickly. So we need to learn how to recite, how to do the gestures, the visualizations, the states of consciousness which we generate. So at the beginning, you learn the mantras, the visualization. Once you've done that, you use that to generate states of consciousness at a pure level. Let's remember, the name of the practice is NgalSo, which is described as practice. Yoga would be the best translation. What does that mean? What does that mean? It's a practice. Apart from the fact I showed this practice to my pastor in India, and he said, well, this is yoga at its most subtle level, secret level. It's something that needs to be repeated, done again and again and again, the sadhana. Which seems the same thing, but actually it isn't. Because every time you gradually get to a deeper level. But to know self-healing is nice, but it's useless if you don't practice it. So I invite you to practice it at your own level, whatever you want to do. And then slowly, slowly you understand more and more. And then gradually you get into until we manage to do the practice even when we're not doing it. During daily life, we're related to the 5 Dhyani Buddhas. We take refuge in Buddha Dharma Sangha, and we react in a different way. We interact in a different way. We can adapt this to everyday experiences. Therefore, when one of the most erudite masters, for example, just to tell you, the Dalai Lama had a conference for the Tantric College where a series of questions were brought to which there were no clear answers, to debate on that. So something really difficult. So most of the people present couldn't understand the question. There was only one person who managed to answer all the question in a way that everybody agreed. It was Geshe Tenda, who actually came. He wasn't really known at that time. He had a very kind of direct manner. So he came to Milan once before he was 100, at the beginning of the 90s. So when Lama Gangchen was teaching self-healing, he saw Lama Gangchen teaching. And one day, once Lama Gangchen was about to go out of the Gompa, passing him by, Geshe Tenda, he got Lama Gangchen by the scruff of the neck. He took him like that. And he looked him in the face and said, "Oi, Kosha," which is a very direct way, a very crude way. Hey, Lama, treating him as an equal. I understand what you did. You gave the root of your heart, which was self-healing. He said, many people won't understand. If people don't understand, don't worry. You don't respond, I will. And there's some things in self-healing which he added. So, for example, Mani Padme Hum, that you start with the left hand. He added that. When you do this bit, the left hand on the outside, which he made. Geshe Tenda made these changes. Lama Gangchen gave us the most special root part of his heart, which Lama Gangchen himself described as he didn't invent it. It's something which was created in his previous reincarnation, who at that time, there weren't the conditions to transmit this. It was too revolutionary for his time. He created this system, and he hid it in his mental continuum until his next life. And then when Lama Gangchen went to Borobudur, this imprint on his mental continuum was reignited, and he came up with self-healing. Actually, this is usually said at the beginning, not the end. But let's conclude this week that we've had. But it's nothing more than a beginning, a part. I invite you all to practice. When I showed the practice to some of my masters, the abbot of Tashilhunpa, who died a few years ago, who's one of the most important, renowned masters in the whole of Tibet. When he saw this practice, and he was really traditional, when he saw this, he asked me questions for 3 hours. It was supposed to be half an hour. He said, this is incredible. He was ecstatic about the whole. He said, if somebody's to practice, they need to do this. So we have a fantastic instrument in our hands, which adapts to the level of each of us. All that we need to do is to use it to the best of our possibilities. Yeah, there are different practices, there are different systems because we're all different. But Lama Gangchen Rinpoche said to me, all you need to do really is self-healing. That's enough. Not forgetting that the self-healing for the environment is not a different practice, but it's an add-on to self-healing. So it's a practice in which we include the element mothers. Therefore, I tried these days to offer to you, let's say, the practice of self-healing without filters, without trying to simplify, also explaining the most profound part, not to put you off, but to show you it's a progressive, complete path. And the wonderful thing is that if you understand it well, you can understand any sadhana in Tibetan Buddhism. This really opens, this is the basis to understand Gurya Samaja, Yamantaka, Vajrayogini, whatever practice. This is the basis which permits us to, helps us to get into contact in a very simple way with something which normally is done in a very complex way, which is complex. So I invite you to study again and again, familiarize yourself. When we Nyemba means Tibetan words which means familiarize yourself. I received this wonderful treasure from Gangchen Rinpoche, and I'm passing this on to you. And we'll continue this way throughout the year. And we'll have the opportunity to go further. Tomorrow, Lama Caroline is going to give the initiation of Vajrapani, and the teachings of Vajrapani, which is one of the practices on which Lama Gangchen gave a lot of emphasis, especially the part of healing, environmental conflicts. It's very effective practice, so I encourage you to take advantage of that. Let's make our dedications.
L'iniziazione sabato sarà l'introduzione.
So Lama Karen is beginning this evening. And tomorrow I'll be in Siena. So I won't be here tomorrow. Anyway, that's got nothing to do with it. Let's make our dedication. Let's give thanks for the teachings.
Shide simcho rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyurchi ke pa nyampar me payang kongne konto pelwar sho chancho simcho rinpoche ma ke panam ke gyurchi ke pa nyampar me payang kongne konto pelwar sho gewa di nyurto da Lama Sangye Drup Gyurene Drowa Chikyang Malu Te Sala Köpar Sho Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Kunyan Delekshi Ninsen Takto Delekpe Kuncho Sumki Chingilo Kuncho Sumki Ngodrubutsol Kuncho Sumki Trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita con molti segni di buon auspicio. At dawn or dusk, at night or midday, may the three jewels grant us their blessings. May they help us to achieve all realizations and sprinkle all the path of our lives with various signs of auspiciousness. Volevo solo
I just wanted to conclude thanking each of you for these days, for your being here, coming here with an open heart. And it's also for me, every time it's an opportunity for me, in having to explain, I put myself into contact with the subject, and to remember and to renew our gratitude towards the center. The fact that we're here together is because the whole structure, the organization, the staff, the costs, which are enormous, and it's not obvious. I made a decision a few years ago that all teaching should be free. But once you realize there's benefit that you've received, I ask you, if you've received benefit, to participate in the survival of the center. It's not, so without going on too long, but there's a big difference between paying for something and to offer something so that everybody can take advantage. It changes completely. So we're going from the weight of paying to the pleasure of offering, two different dynamics. So there's the generosity garden, where you can make a commitment according to your abilities. So I invite you, according to your abilities, to make an offer to the center. So traditionally, one would never go to the teacher, master, with empty-handed. So I'm asking you to be aware of this from your heart, and we can rejoice together and the joy of participating in this venture. Buon appetito, have a good lunch.